The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Victoria Jones from Satoshi's Page.
Hey there, folks.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue one. Issue one, Bitcoin to $1 million. Former Coinbase CTO Balaji predicts Bitcoin to rise 35,000% in June amid U.S. bank uncertainty. That's right, Balaji is predicting that the price of Bitcoin will rise to $1 million a coin, entering into a bet on Twitter with two individuals planning to pay in USDC if the bet is unsuccessful. Balaji believes that Bitcoin hyper-Bitcoinization will start and a redenomination of the global economy based upon Bitcoin as digital gold. And he believes that it's going to start and complete itself within the next 90 days. Victoria, what do you think about Balaji's prediction? $1 million a coin in 90 days.
Well, it's a bold call, and that would be nice. Anyone who's holding Bitcoin, I'm sure, would appreciate that. Although if it does go to $1 million in 90 days, it means the world is in some serious trouble. So, it might be great for Bitcoiners, not so great for everybody else. So, just for the sake of everybody else and the fact that they need a bit more time to kind of figure out what's going on and get on board, I hope it doesn't come true. But for those of us who do have some Bitcoin, it means that at least we can help the world carry on if it all falls apart. So yeah, bold call. Realistically, though, I don't think it is likely to happen. I mean, I recently saw the interview that he did with Pomp, and I think even he was saying that, as apart from anything else, it, just the fact that he said that has created a lot of attention, and it's a way of drawing people into Bitcoin in order to get people interested in this, because ultimately we've all known for a long time that this is what's likely to happen in the long-term future. I tweeted earlier today, I think I said, I think someone said in the past they've said Bitcoin's a solution looking for a problem, and I said it's not a solution looking for a problem. It knows that there's a problem there. It's just waiting for everyone else to figure it out. And I think if it gets to $1 million in 90 days, it means everyone's figured it out pretty damn quick. And I'm not that confident that people, 90 days, none of us figured out Bitcoin within 90 days. I think for people to go from knowing nothing about it to be experts and wanting to put all their money in it in 90 days, I'm not so sure about that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I think it would be a classic Pyrrhic victory where the victor is destroyed as well. Because if Bitcoin goes to $1 million this quickly, it must, like you're saying, be because all of the banks have suddenly collapsed and no one has any more faith in fiat currency and centralized money, and they all run to the hills of Bitcoin instantly, immediately, and in a serious crisis. So yes, Bitcoin might be worth $1 million, but we won't have anything to spend it on. You won't even be able to get a hamburger for $1 million. So it's not that great a thing. But Balaji, meanwhile, put his money on it. What do you think? Exit question: will Balaji win his bet?
I don't think so. And the other thing that occurred to me while you were talking is, of course, if all the banks have collapsed, no one's got $1 million to put into Bitcoin anyway, or any way of getting out of it either. So actually, we could have the reverse problem. I mean, there could suddenly be a sudden decrease in the price of Bitcoin because all of the cash has suddenly been sucked out of the system. Because ultimately, Bitcoin is very correlated with the M2 money supply. So if all of the banks collapse and there's no M2 money supply, what's supporting the price of Bitcoin? So it could play out on either extreme, which could be very interesting.
I think it's a lot like that Twilight episode where the guy finally has all the time in the world to read, and then he breaks his glasses. You'd be sitting there pointing at your computer terminal. I have all the Bitcoin. I have all the Bitcoin. And no one would care because, there's no more day trading. There's no more Bitcoin. There's no more marketplaces. It's survival of the fittest, right? So I think it would be kind of a disaster, but everyone's really excited about it anyway, and what Balaji is going on. Let's move on to issue 2. Jim Cramer predicts Bitcoin's imminent demise. Will his record for getting it wrong continue? Jim Cramer of the TV show Mad Money. He's known for pushing those buttons that make all the sounds, and it goes, woo, it's so amazing. He has a professional show where he does that. And apparently people invest based upon his advice, although the index predicting against Cramer has been correct 105% up. It's a crazy bet. He's also predicted that Deutsche Bank is very profitable and doing well. Thomas Hunt, what do you think about Jim Cramer's predictions? Well, as everyone knows, I ran a show called Mad Bitcoins, which had nothing to do with Mad Money ever. Just kind of had the title, and I just thought that Bitcoins were mad and crazy. It was more of an Alice in Wonderland thing. So not a big fan of Jim Cramer or anyone who predicts about money on TV. I was very impressed by Hassan Minhaj on The Daily Show. I think he should be the permanent host. He also went to the same high school I went to. So totally biased for Hassan Minhaj, but he did a great bit with the guy from Shark Tank. And he talked at the end and he said, really, you shouldn't be investing in individual stocks, and you shouldn't be showing individual stocks on your show, especially at a daily and granular level. You should tell people to buy index funds. Over the long term, normal people would be much happier in a mutual fund, in an index fund, in a basket of stocks, whatever it is. They'd be way safer than following the mad money and going after this and going after that. And I like this and I like that. And we all know Cramer's been wrong on a lot of things. We know that predicting on TV is ridiculous, especially the granular nature. My brother watches CNBC every day, and I don't know why. And every time I watch it, I wonder, like, why don't they have one show where the guy just sits back and he's like, I'm a yearly investor and I don't check the price of my stocks all year. And he just sits there and he's like, I'm fine with it. I checked last year and they went up 3%. I checked the year before, 2.5%. It does. If you have the right investment strategy, you'll be fine. But I think everyone wants that insider information. They want to get those ups. And if they're watching the Jim Cramer show, they're kind of just like horse pickers or gamblers. They're just looking for a new horse, and Jim Cramer's going to lead them there. Victoria, what do you think about Jim Cramer and his predictions of the market?
Well, I don't live in America, so I don't actually see the show on a regular basis, but I am aware of who he is. And I have heard, I've heard a lot of people make fun of the fact that, he's famous for being wrong a lot of the time. And I don't know, maybe he's now cultivating his personality around that. Maybe it's the ultimate test of the intelligence of the public to see how long they're going to follow Jim Cramer and how much money can they lose in the process. But yeah, I mean, I'd be very surprised if anyone is actually watching that show anymore with seriously intending to follow his advice for investment. It's probably for entertainment purposes only. Yeah. And in terms of him predicting Bitcoin's demise, well, we all know how wrong he's likely to be on that. So
he's become quite the counter indicator for Bitcoin. And as Hassan said, I mean, they really need to stop doing this. They should shut up and start Shark Tank, stick to what they know. But and that there's this idea where Cramer and other people like this, they do have a diversified portfolio. They themselves have tons of real estate. They have tons of mutual funds. They have it all mixed up to the point where if Cramer's saying, I like Nike today, he's taking his kind of play money and betting on that. And for him, play money could be tens of thousands of dollars, whereas the people at home, they have $100. They're going to buy one share of Nike. They're going to hope it goes up. They're going to watch it every day. They're going to live and die with that one share. And it's a completely different reality. Whereas if Cramer could see your portfolio, he would probably say mutual funds. He would say savings account, try to get some real estate. I don't know financial advice, but there are just so many more basic steps of investing that you could do before you're like, take a flyer on Nike or get me some of that Beyond Meat or whatever the stock of the day is. and these shows, yet they go on 24 hours a day with this, the price up, the price down, and they're starting to integrate Bitcoin and altcoins and ICOs and everything else, or whatever you're going to call them now, into that. And it's that same thing where we just want that dopamine hit of the slot machine. We want to pull it down. We want to get that sweet money. And we're not logically thinking that we trusted a guy on TV called Mad Money. When we trusted some random former investment guy, some vice president of some company. Speaking of which, moving on to the exit question, vice presidents of companies, we happen to have the greatest Bitcoin predictor right here, who predicted that the price of Bitcoin would be higher last week correctly, as per usual. Victoria Jones, will the price of Bitcoin be higher or lower this time next week? Keeping in mind that you are predicting against the greatest predictor of Bitcoin in history, the Magic Bitcoin.
I think it will be lower.
I'm always bullish, so I'm sticking with higher, and I'm going to ask the ball, is it higher? You got to be careful when you shake the ball. It could cause bubbles. Will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week? It is decidedly so. It doesn't want to agree with me, but it agrees with me. Moving on to issue 3, Greenpeace, war on Bitcoin unintentionally spawns a new badass mascot. Greenpeace's Skull of Satoshi artwork highlights their gripes with Bitcoin's consensus mechanism. As predicted on this show, they are using the Ethereum switch to proof of stake to claim that Bitcoin and proof of work are dirty. They are ignoring any of the security benefits and sociological benefits of having a proof of work system, not having a centralized proof of stake system. This is a picture, one of many, of the incredible Greenpeace skull that they launched to the internet sometime this morning. Bitcoiners have taken to it. They love it very much. You'll note that they have nuclear power stacks as well as normal smokestacks on the top, so they're kind of getting their boogeymen mixed up. There's a great cartoon here by Maxie's Club, at Maxie's Club on Twitter, and it says, a little robot Greenpeace guy says, Bitcoin is bad for the environment, change the code. And then it's probably a Rare Pepe guy says, change it yourself, Bitcoin is open source. And it really kind of sums up the whole thing. Also, this one here said, hey, Bitcoiner, check this out. And then the Bitcoiner says, it's beautiful. So Bitcoin seems to be loving their new skull mascot provided by Greenpeace. Victoria, what did you think of Greenpeace and their brand new skull?
Well, I mean, who doesn't love a new piece of artwork? I mean, the motivation behind it is rather questionable, which kind of boggles the mind, really. It's just like, anyone who kind of commissioned that either completely misunderstands what's going on. It's also an example of, how much money goes into propaganda in order to try and change people's mind on things. Because actually, if you think about it, Bitcoin is ultimately a set of rules that a group of human beings have decided upon, and ultimately the only way to disrupt a decentralized system is to change the belief system underneath it. So, for example, there's a book called The Starfish and the Spider, which talks about the difference between centralized organizations and decentralized organizations. And the analogy they use is when they tried to conquer South America, it was dead easy because they just had to find the leader. Once they bumped him off, it was easy to capture the rest of the country. But it was much harder to capture North America because you had the Indians who worked on a collective belief system that they'd carried for thousands of years, and it took them a lot longer to overcome those Indians because those belief systems were very ingrained, and ultimately it was the effort to change those belief systems that meant that they were able to conquer it. And Bitcoin is kind of the same thing. It's one of its most powerful things is its narrative and the fact that it gives us a chance to create a fairer society, and people who are really fed up with how unfair it is really buy into that. And it's one of the reasons why they're so passionate about it, because they're fed up with how things have been unfair for so long, and this is an opportunity to flip that on its head. And so, anyone who comes along with a bunch of money to try and point out its weaknesses, and really point out its weaknesses, I mean, they're kind of clutching at straws. And what they're relying on is the fact that people are going to be more bothered about climate change than they are about the fact that they can't afford milk and they can't afford eggs, and they're about to be homeless because they can't afford their mortgage. And ultimately, at the end of the day, who do you think is going to win the argument? So once you understand it from a big picture perspective, it's very amusing. And I think the Bitcoiners who are laughing understand that very well. And saying, great, that was a good use of money. we're going to enjoy watching how this works out. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
You see, the problem with this is that I kind of agree with Greenpeace a little bit here. I do think that we should be reducing our emissions. I do worry about Bitcoin using too much emissions, but I don't think that they're going to be able to convince people to stop using it, especially with a kind of an advertisement or a graphic or an art piece, whatever this is. It's kind of like when people are addicted to crack cocaine. Like, have you thought about switching to candy bars? Candy bars are great. You don't need to use crack cocaine. Well, people think that Bitcoin is the goose that lays the golden egg, and they're right, because every 10 minutes a block is produced, the money is given to the miners, they sell it to the market, the golden eggs are distributed. And we have to ask ourselves that question from the movie Idiocracy. Classically says, do you like money? He says, I like money too. Like, we're friends. Everyone likes money. The people aren't going to stop into Bitcoin. They aren't going to stop into crack cocaine because you show them a cool artwork with glowing laser eyes. And I agree with the critique about the cooling towers. Bitcoin that was mined by nuclear power would be clean and better, with the exception of the waste, which seems at this point the best possible trade-off we have for producing electricity. So if you like electricity, we're going to have those trade-offs. But yeah, there's no way that they can kill Bitcoin this way. There's no way they can change the code or slow Bitcoin. I agree with the cartoon, the comic strip. They could launch their own Greenpeace version of Bitcoin that would be proof of stake, that would be rejected by the market by the superior security proof of work version. They never say, oh, well, it costs so much for your proof of work. Well, it costs so much for superior security, for a better network. And we're going to see that as the competition with Ethereum continues. And I do think that this will change at some point, that Greenpeace will realize that they'd be better off joining with the Bitcoiners. They'd be better off joining with the new economy and the new reality that cryptocurrencies and all these other things have created that is not going to go away, rather than sticking with the old reality in the banking system, which is probably where they get a lot of their money. So you got to wonder about this, who's paying for it. It's a lot of advertising. It's a lot of money. But then again, Bitcoiners are offering money for the piece. They would like to purchase it. They want to try to have it at the Bitcoin event in Miami. Maybe they could auction it off. And I don't know if it helps, Victoria, but they say the piece is also built of old computer parts, things from before you could even mine Bitcoin, or before Bitcoin even exists. So I guess it makes it a better critique because it's made of garbage. I don't know. But we better move on to the next issue. Check out worldcryptonetwork.com. Worldcryptonetwork.com has 3,037 videos, including last week's with Adam Meister and Adam McBride, the all Adam Bitcoin Group episode at worldcryptonetwork.com. Moving on to issue 3. Litecoin founder Charlie Lee says Bitcoin fixes world's dirty gold problem. Yes, there's a problem with gold. It's almost impossible to spend, as the graphic's not here, but there's a graphic where it shows a gold bar filled with tungsten. And it says that the gold bar would have weighed correctly, it would have looked correctly, felt right in your hand. But if you cracked it open, it would be tungsten. And Charlie Lee, creator of Litecoin, says that Bitcoin has an advantage compared to gold. You can send it around. You can check if it's real with any of the nodes on the network. Victoria, what do you think about the comparison between Bitcoin and dirty, impossible to spend gold?
Yeah, I think he's absolutely right. I mean, it was one of the things that occurred to me when I first became interested in Bitcoin, because I actually took an interest in gold and silver first, because it was listening to economists and learning about the properties of sound money and how that was based on the metals. But because I was running my own business at the time, I realized that, just taking cash to the bank was a complete hassle compared to collecting card payments. And, so the reality of actually accepting gold and silver for payment, fraud is actually a big problem. And of course, with Bitcoin, it's verified with the code every time you spend it. So, avoiding fraud, the fact that it's heavy. I mean, ultimately, the only reason a gold standard works is because you need a network of banks in order to create the receipt against it, in order to make the money flow. And of course, it's because the banks could not be trusted with actually keeping those accounts honest that we've now got the problem that we have today. I mean, I know they felt they had very good reasons for adjusting it when they did, like the First World War, but ultimately it didn't do the rest of us any favors. And so the thing is, if we go back onto a gold standard, that's what you need. You need the intermediary in order to make it work as a payment mechanism. And of course, Bitcoin, gets rid of having that third party. That's the main benefit of it. So, it's got similar properties to gold, but it's superior in many respects. And many of us are talking chapter and verse. I think Charlie Lee is absolutely right. I think he's, just focused on one aspect of it in order to drill the point home. But I think if you really think it through and how gold became currency in the first place, because, a lot of the financial problems in the 1700s were about the fact that, the metal coins were being debased by being mixed with other coins. I mean, that's what led to the French Revolution. I mean, at the time, Adam Smith wrote in his book that, the British pound was already only a third silver, the Scottish pound was a sixth silver, and the French franc was a 166 silver, which was why they had to change their currency into assignats, and that's what led to the French Revolution. So, a lot of people saying that we need to go back to gold, they really need to rethink. I mean, I know that's what's happened for centuries, but as far as we know, we never had anything like Bitcoin before. So, logic dictates that it's definitely better. But people find it very hard to visualize new things, and change is difficult for people as well. And a lot of people are still scared of computers. I mean, it took years before my mother felt she could send a text message. Even though most of us were comfortable with it, people really struggle with those sorts of changes. But yeah, logically, of course, it's better.
It is all about those trusted third parties where you have to trust that they have the right number of gold for the right number of gold certificates. And that's always where the problem is. That's always the choke point there. And I remember, I think it was at one of the very first Bitcoin conferences I went to, Bitcoin in the Beltway, where Jeffrey Tucker said that gold is great and it's fantastic as a currency, and it has just two problems. It's heavy and it takes up space. And if you look at these properties, if you were trying to flee the country and you had a trunk full of gold and you go over the border and it goes ta-dunk, ta-dunk, well, they're obviously going to know you have tons of gold in your car, even if you've welded it and hidden it in the car and it's the trim. That's just the trim. No, they're going to know you have gold. There's been pictures of fantastic, like 1920s and 30s cars with wrecked axles where people were trying to escape with their gold. And the same thing, even if you're trying to stay in one space, if you want to go to the store, you have to take your gold with you. You have to have it in a cart following you around, or maybe you left your gold back at base. Now you've hired guards. Now you're essentially running your own bank. Maybe you could share with some other guys around here. We could all keep our gold together. We could save money on the guards. Now we're running a bank, and it's only a line there, as Victoria said, we're printing out gold certificates because it's too hard to carry around our gold and we don't want to go to the bank every day. So we trusted, Arthur with the ledger to write down the gold certificates, and we can trust him. And we're back in the same situation we're at before, with the fractional reserve, with an untrustworthy bookkeeper. The amazing thing about Bitcoin at its core is that it has this trustworthy bookkeeper of the blockchain, where the shared ledger that Arthur's writing into is held on hundreds of thousands of computers. And we can check with them and say, hey, did you get this deal? I got this deal. And we can work it out together. I think that gold will never have that. And if it also goes with NFTs and collectibles, where if I say you have a curio card and that digital signature matches up with the digital signature of a curio card, you surely have one. It's quality, it's there, it's rare, it's been passed from this person to that person, you can track it around. And that's what Bitcoin is delivering, is that collectible truth of that knowledge. And with the bar of gold, even if it's on a ledger, if it's in someone's hands, they could have switched it out. They could have stamped it and faked it and had a whole elaborate procedure. Even if it's made as fancy jewelry, it could have been swapped out. Like, you only know it's gold when you really test for it to be gold, which also helps destroy it and make it hard to resell. So I think we're a long ways from a gold standard and a lot closer to a Bitcoin standard. Let's move on to the next issue, issue 5, I think. I don't know. Linus Text Tips was hacked and used to stream a Bitcoin scam using Elon Musk at the front lines. And Linus Tech Tips is a great YouTube channel that's been reviewing technology and items for maybe even a decade. And their password got hacked the other day. And what the hackers decided was the best way to make money on this was to rename the channel Tesla and start showing a video where Elon Musk at the bottom of the screen suggests that you send him your Bitcoin, that he will send you double your Bitcoin back. So it is an impressive turn on an old scam to see the hackers start to take over popular channels, even rename them to try to trick, to get into your feed, to trick you to send them your Bitcoin so you could get double the money back. Victoria, what do you think? Elon Musk himself was promising to double your Bitcoin. This is a major channel. They probably have millions of subscribers. It has 15.3 million subscribers. How do you think the hackers did? Do you think they got any Bitcoin? Would you send them any? I mean, they're clearly going to double your money. Oh, you got to unmute there. Sorry.
Well, many of us are now familiar with that scam, so particularly in the Bitcoin space. So anyone who's familiar with it may well have smelt a rat straight away. Also, the idea of someone like Elon Musk, considering how famous he is, if you start to think for a minute of what the reality would be of everyone sending him a load of Bitcoin and for him to double it, when you follow it through logically, I think most intelligent people would have walked away straight away. But of course, the entire world isn't like that. And I can imagine that, quite a few people fell for it, because people fall for scams all the time. And if it was done realistically, and, the thing about channels with a lot of subscribers is, you've got the attention of a lot of people. Although it was a tech channel, so, presumably most of their audience are pretty tech savvy. So they may well have thought something was off straight away. So, there were probably lots of signs that you shouldn't trust it, but, I can well believe that many people fell for it. Does the article say how much they managed to get away with? Well, I don't suppose they know, do they? Because
it doesn't say, but it would be possible to check the Bitcoin address on the blockchain. I don't have it handy right now, but anyone watching later can check and put it in the comments for it. But yeah, I agree with what Victoria is saying. Even logistically, to think about Elon handing out the Bitcoin or sending it back to you, even if he had a secretary that's sitting there, oh, well, 15.3 came in, I'll send out the 30. Oh, this came in, send it out. And, maybe he has a script or something, but then you're essentially saying he has a script designed to give his money away. Why would he write this script? For what purpose? And if Elon Musk is so rich, he's one of the top 3 richest in the world, did he get that rich by giving that money away? That doesn't make any sense. When we hear about he's invested in this, he's building this company, he's building these things that then he sells for more money, and that's how it works for him. So it doesn't make any sense, but it is impressive for them to take over Linus Tech Tips, to get these 15.3 million potential suckers. They also have to have Bitcoin. So it is kind of a targeted market. It has to be tech people. They have to have the Bitcoin ready to send. So it is a bit difficult in some ways. The scams where they call up the old lady and they get her on the phone, they say, hey, go to the Bitcoin ATM, get your cash from here, put your money into the Bitcoin ATM, and they keep them on the phone the whole time like a terrorist. In some ways, those scams probably make a lot more money. But this one, they just had to get the password to Linux Tech Tips, launch their payload, have it all ready, and boom, they get some Bitcoin, because I'm sure somebody said, oh, I got to try it out. He's doubling the money. So it's a really good deal. And it's exciting to see the hackers continue to change their techniques. And it's sad to see YouTube doing nothing. YouTube could easily stop this. They could shut it down. The article could say the hack lasted for 3 minutes, but we know it doesn't say that. We know the hack lasted for hours. It was damaging to the reputation of Linux Tech Tips, who is a good YouTuber, an important part of the channel of the company, except not, because they don't treat him that way. But moving on to our bonus issues, we have no graphic here, but it says crypto giant Binance resumes withdrawals and spot trading after a glitch called the outage. So everything is fine at Binance. There's nothing to worry about, that the company has no headquarters and they keep moving around. Withdrawals are back on. They said in the article that Binance now responds for 90% of the spot Bitcoin market. So surely nothing bad will happen with this in the future. And Terra creator Do Kwon is reportedly arrested at the Montenegro airport. Do Kwon was one of the founders of Terra and Luna, one of the stable coins that collapsed recently. It was perfectly stable right until the end when it wasn't. Victoria, what do you think about Binance and Do Kwon allegedly being arrested in Montenegro?
Well, Binance, I think it's a shame, really, because I think Binance does a pretty good job for those of us who work in the crypto, who are involved in the crypto industry. It facilitates, trading of, a new innovation that wouldn't be available otherwise. And, the fact that it's been so successful and it holds so many assets is testament to that. People absolutely love it. Obviously, there are some legitimate concerns that many people have raised. But of course, a lot of the concerns are due to comparing what Binance does with the rest of the traditional financial system. And they're assuming that, because it doesn't follow the rules of the traditional financial system, there's nothing constraining it. But of course, all of the rules with all the different cryptocurrencies are constrained by the blockchain. Well, when you're dealing with them out in the real world. So to a large extent, you are having to trust that, Binance is doing the right thing. But, they had a big run on their treasury at the end of last year with the FTX scandal, and they seemed to hold up pretty well. But obviously with Terra and Luna, it was a lot of people lost a lot of money when that collapsed, and a lot of people have put their trust in that stable coin. And I think it's really sad. I mean, with a number of these hype cycles in crypto, a number of people have ended up losing money because they trusted the wrong people. And so, a lot of people are getting very hard education, following these things. And this is the reality of operating in the Wild West. You have a whole different, I think it's training people in terms of learning what to trust and what not to trust. Previously we've had to rely on the regulations and the authorities. Everything's going to be okay because they're sorting it out. But as they become corrupt, it's like we've got to relearn our intuition as to who to trust and who not to trust with these things, and gather different information, and you have to judge it on a whole new level, really. Because lots of people have been calling for Binance to be a scam for a long, long period of time, but it's a bit like the banking system. It keeps going. So, who's to say? And the thing is, if you'd avoided using it for the last 5 years, look at all the opportunities you could have lost. So I don't know, I think some people are just kind of like, well, I don't want to lose out on this opportunity. I think the danger is when you trust any of these organizations 100%, because then you leave yourself very vulnerable. I would never discourage people from using these things at all, but I would discourage them from, using all of their wealth in one of these platforms. I think that'd be a very silly thing to do. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how it plays out.
I also think it's a really good reminder of the difficulties of a long-term hodl. You're like, oh, it'll be so easy. I would buy Bitcoin and I would just hold it forever. But then Cripsy would go out of business and take your money. And then all these other ones, and Mt. Gox, and then this one. And then who knows about Binance? And what if you left it in local Bitcoins, or if you left it in Silk Road, or any of these other marketplaces where you could have casually left some Bitcoins, even change from some kind of illicit deal you might have done that could have made your life, right? But you lost your account because it was centralized and it got deleted and destroyed. So it is very difficult to accidentally be a long-term hodler of Bitcoin. And I mean, with Binance, I've been spurious of them from the beginning. And like Victoria said, certainly lost opportunities and lost ease of use because they provide a great product. It's easy to use. You can transfer your money in. You can buy a bunch of crazy altcoins. They have the smart chain, all those kind of things. But it also seems to me a bit like Sheep Marketplace, this classic darknet marketplace that I talk about all the time because I think it's so funny. And they provided fantastic service right up until the weekend where they exit scammed. And then no one could contact them and all their money was gone. So if you're using Binance as an exchange and you go in there and you buy some crazy altcoin and you send it off to your own wallet, you're probably going to be fine. Like you're going to walk through this whole thing and you're saying, why is everyone so concerned about exchanges? But the reality is that the less information you have, the more likely you are to see Binance as Bank of America or one of these other banks, which are at the very least insured, right? So if you have less than 250K in the United States, blah, 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 they cover it for you. So if you're in some other country and you put your life savings into Binance and it looks like a bank, you could presentably lose your whole life savings. So unfortunately, that does keep happening to low information people in the developing world, which is probably sabotaging Bitcoin adoption. But again, like Victoria said, it's the Wild West. What can we do about it? It's going to keep happening. There's a goose that lays golden eggs out there. People are going to want a piece of that. So I hope for the best on Binance. As far as the Terra Luna guy, it's always exciting when it says one of these guys gets arrested. He says he didn't do it in the article, full disclosure. And it doesn't even really say he's arrested. So until they have the pictures, and even then the pictures you could just create on Midjourney these days. People have been doing that with other people these days as well. So just want to make sure we cover all the issues here. Victoria, do you have a story of the week or a prediction? We've hit the end of the show, so go ahead.
Well, probably go the story of the week because that's the easiest thing to talk about because it's about myself. So yeah, quite a few things have been posted on my website lately, considering that I went through a long hiatus of not doing much on it. But yeah, I think the last time I was on, I was talking about the article I was working on, digital money versus digital law. That will be published on Sunday. So if anyone's interested in that, sign up to the newsletter on my website, satoshispage.com. And yeah, so don't have a prediction. I wouldn't want to predict anything right now. The world is so uncertain, anything could happen. If you think it's going one way, it could go the other.
Well, it does look bad for First Republic Bank. We'll have to see how that one turns out. Watching that one pretty close. I had a fun week yesterday. I did an interview with an NFT artist named Threesomes, and he's been hand painting baseball cards. He's got his own kind of baseball league with teams and players that play each other. And in his league, if the Giants play the Cardinals, it's real Giants playing real religious Cardinals. So it sounded really fun, and it's a great interview. I hope to get it out to you next week. Other than that, we had a lot of cancellations today, which is fine. Everybody gets sick and has things happen in their life. It's just unfortunate when they all happen at the same time. So that kind of happens to us around here. But thanks to Victoria for stepping up and joining us today so we could get the show out for you. Be sure to give us a thumbs up down below and subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time, bye-bye.